Hey everyone, as you know, abilities are a core part of Vault Hunters, and while I know there are already some videos ranking them by usefulness, I'm sort of doing another ranking, where most of the weight is decided by how well the ability scales. To do that, I spent some time putting every value from mana, cooldown, duration, and every other number in a skill in a spreadsheet, and making some charts, because if you need to visualize anything, making a graph, that is the way to go. That's what they are good for. However, life got busy and most of the work I had done ended up outdated, so I needed to redo some parts and I will mention some when it comes to them, if I think the changes have been big enough to warrant it. As for the ranking itself, I will use a tier list where C is the spending points on this skill doesn't feel good nor bad, everything above is determined by how good leveling the ability feels, and everything below C is how bad it feels. With that said, let's start with the order you see them in the game menu. Nova has its base in two specializations, Frost and Poison, with no video damage in an area around you. With Frost, instead of damage, you freeze enemies in place, and with Poison, you poison the enemies for a few seconds. I had written most of this before the nerfs and changes, so let me just show you where I had them placed and how the buffs and nerfs changed their position. Nova itself had a very good scaling and it was mostly unchanged, which, having just a boost to its values, it was an A tier before and it still is. Frost, on the other hand, was very powerful and you could permanently freeze enemies, and in conjunction to another skills, you could basically defeat bosses without even taking damage or moving. Now it has higher CD and lower duration, making it much weaker. It went from an S tier to a C tier in my opinion. Poison might have been the biggest winner. It was a C tier skill, but now with the duration staying low instead of increasing, and the damage it has, each tick of damage will be doing a lot more and a tiny bit of knockback, so if you can't one-shot with Nova, just take Poison. It will do more damage and keep you outside the reach from mobs, so I think it's fair to say that it is now an S tier spec. Vein Miner, besides the basic, has 3 specs. Vein Miner, when you activate, increases the amount of blocks you mine. Fortune, gives you an extra level of fortune when used. Finesse, gives you an extra unbreaking levels to your tool when used, and Void, makes it so that inside the vaults, when used, only ores drop. As this skill has no mana cost or value, it can only be upgraded with no downsides when investing your skill points. If we look at the amount of blocks you mine, you gain 4 blocks per level in its base skill and only half of that in the other 3 specs. As for the specs, Fortune and Void only give you their effect when taken, never upgrading further than Fortune 1, or without adding any other effect to Void. Meanwhile, Finesse increases the unbreaking level it gives every 8 levels 1 level of unbreaking, from unbreaking 1 to unbreaking 4, which is later more than doubles the normal unbreaking cap on enchanting. As for where to place them each, I think Void and Fortune should go into the D tier, because, while having good effects, they give you no reason to keep investing levels into the skill, so they just become worse versions of the basic one. Going up, I have Vein Miner in the B tier, the basic one, as it has no downsides and increases the blocks at a nice rate, but has nothing special going for it, so it cannot be higher, and Finesse is a case where I'm going to place it maybe higher than I should. It can become irrelevant once you get Immortal on your Paxel, but as that only works outside of the vault, there is a case where Finesse is an S tier, and that is with the pickaxe that you only upgrade copiously, as that effect only works inside vaults and you want to have it as high as possible for as long as possible. Rampage has its basic, vampiric and chain specs. Rampage increases the damage dealt while active, vampiric adds leech to your hits, and chain adds chaining to your weapon. Okay, let's just say this now so I don't have to talk about it every skill. In almost every skill that uses mana, the mana cost increases in a similar fashion for every spec, and I will say when it doesn't. That being said, in this case it goes up like stairs, and the last stair of the basic skill is the bottom stair for the other two, and for all of them the mana is used every second while the skill is active, as these don't have duration, but are instead toggle abilities with a static 10-second cooldown. As for where they go and why, let me start with the worst and go up from there. Chain is useless to put more than one skill point into it, because it adds 2 chain hits at level 1 and then increases to 3 hits at level 17. So not only do you not get anything between levels 1 and 17, you also don't get anything past level 17. So this is an E tier. But thankfully, that is the only bad skill of this ability, as the other two are B for Vampire and A for Rampage. Rampage has its damage increasing at 5% per level, and Leech, while it is increasing lifesteal is rather low, at least it is consistent. Ghostwalker is a simple skill. It just does what it does and gets no specializations. Basically, once you use it, you go untargetable to mobs for the duration of the skill. As for the extra points you spend on it, you get longer use of the skill. By the max level, you triple the duration and double the cost. And I know I said I was going to do this in order as they are in the skill page, but I think this is actually the best place to talk about Stunfall, aka the skill that negates fall damage, like Ghostwalker also does. And that is why even though with each level you gain Stunfall above to everything in it, I would place it in B tier with Ghostwalker in A. However, if Stunfall were to become a specialization of Ghostwalk, I think it would be an S tier, as that would take the same effect from Ghostwalk and it would drop then to B tier. So as I said, I started writing this in update 4.1, so yeah, since then Stunfall got 2 specs. However, they are really only useful in the Snow theme for the Surefoot and Nether theme for Cold Snap, so they are even worse than the Space Stonefall, and their icons are very counterintuitive. So I think both of them should go into the C tier, useful but only if you can spec into them inside the vaults, therefore no real reason to level them too much. Now for the beloved Dash. Dash launches you forward in the direction you are looking at. Bullet makes it so that you damage the enemies you pass through. These two abilities were very powerful, and while they might still be, they have been brought down from the heavens to the pits of hell with nerfs. If we take how far you can travel every time the cooldown is down, and also taking into consideration the mana you are spending, the new Dash at level 12, it has around the same strength as the previous level 2, thanks to the increase in cooldown and mana cost. As for Bullet, now it has a fixed cooldown of 20 seconds and half the launch rate of normal Dash, while keeping it the previous damage. I get the skills were very powerful, but this feels like a bit too much to do in one go. Both of these specs could have been made an argument to be at least low S tier before, but now Dash should go no higher than A and Bullet is firmly in B. Mega Jump got done dirty this time. Mega Jump, as the name says, makes you jump high and you can upgrade it to also break blocks, drill for up and dig for down. However, there is no reason to get it at any point, because Dash also lets you go up and down if needed and gives you even more controlling power, so it doesn't even matter if that scaling isn't that bad, just take Dash. C tier. Not bad, just unfortunate. Mana Shield uses your mana as a pseudo health bar. It redirects parts of the damage you take into your mana pool. Mana Shield, despite being a toggle ability, also has a cooldown, and while it also has a mana increase in its mana used per second, it's negligible, so the only real difference you get each time you spend a point on it is you get a 10% more damage absorb. And at level 10 you even get a full damage absorption. And at max level you lose 2.5 mana per HP lost, so it's not even that bad in that department. And since that's how it works, I think this one is without a doubt an S tier skill. When in doubt where to spend your points, go Execute. It has no mana cost, cooldown doesn't matter as it is a 1 per fight use, and once you get to max level you effectively only have to fight alpha boss or elite monster. Execute just makes it so that your next attack deals between 5 to 50% of the enemy health bar in damage, depending on the level of the skill. Do I need to say more? S tier. This one is going to be hard. I won't say that heal is good, I really do. Seeing as this skill is a must have and arguably is it's simply wrong to not take it at level 1. But it scales so badly, both its base form and aid. At least Cleanse is decent, I guess. If you played or have seen anyone play Vault Hunters, you've surely seen someone unsure if they should take heal level 4 or not, and most end up delaying taking it, since the increase in mana cost and cooldown seems too steep. And that is the correct choice. If you take level 4, you only get as strong as it was in level 3 once you get to level 6, because the only 3 levels that have higher healing per minute per mana spent are level 6, 9 and 12, and the skill expects that the increase in instant health is enough reason to be nerfed for 2 levels between levels 3 and to 6, 6 to 9 and 9 to 12. But let's be real, 1 heart almost never will be enough to save you from taking little damage. Knowing that, I think you might agree with me when I put heal and aid on the bottom of the list alongside Shane, Heavy saved for one specific ability. Meanwhile, Cleanse is at max a D tier, because you only really need 1 point into it, and if you need more, well, that is a matter of getting good. I decided to let the old heal part stay because of how good the changes they did are, since I started writing this script at the tail end of December 2022, more than a month ago. Anyway, heal is now good, and it has good scaling. We have a reason to level up past level 3. No, that's wrong, it's not that we have a reason, we are not punished for doing it anymore. Yeah, that's more like it. No more seesaw cooldown and mana costs. Now we get more linear progression in the health, mana and cooldown. At level 8, you have more HPS or healing per second than you did at level 12 before, and for cheaper. But when it comes to aid, the cooldown now is too long, starting at a full 2 minutes, and while it heals more in one go, well, you are most of the time alone even in co-op vaults, so using it is not that needed or useful. So I would like you to give an idea. Instead of aid, we get regeneration, a specialization where you will lose that instant HP you get back, trading it for restoring more HP over time, for a larger amount of HP restored. Making it more dangerous, that is because as it stands, while heal got better, aid didn't that much, it is almost as useless as it was before. Tank has 3 different specs. Basic tank, that reduces the damage you take, basically works like protection. Hawk, that reduces knockback and damage from projectiles, and Porcupine, that works as thorns, giving you a chance to redirect part of the damage you take to the attacker. Tank itself will reduce the damage up to 50%, while Hawks at max level will fully negate projectile damage and knockback, but with our rare range damages, it's not as good as it sounds. And as for Porcupine, you eventually get a 20% chance to reflect a bit more damage than what you took. All in all, I don't think this ability tree is that good. Tank and Rock do fit into the B tier, but Porcupine will feel bad when you max it but still don't get any procs or on activation because you were unlucky, so it's more of a low C tier in my opinion. Summon is the good old Eternals that we can call to help us, mostly with their buff or debuff auras. This skill scales in a particular way, in which it increases in the cooldown normally, but every 3 levels it increases it again, and you gain 1 extra Eternal Summon per use. However, I know for a time Eternals didn't work properly, so it's hard to rate them, but if they did or already do, they are without a doubt S tier. Just make sure you have at least 1 before you level up this skill. This skill went from having 2 different specs to having too many. Before Hunter had its base form that worked to find out about chests, and another one that you used to find vault objectives. Now with the skill, we still have those 2, but also specs for coins, and for some reason 1 for each type of individual chest instead of yours. As for numbers, the increase in range, duration and mana now remains static for all levels while you reduce the cooldown. This is in contrast with how it was previously, where all of them would change every level. Before I had this skill in S, and I honestly think that in later levels this skill got buffed. It's finally time to talk about the worst ability in the game, Farmer. Farmer came to take the worker's place. If you use the skill, the crops around you will grow faster. Not fast, just faster than normal. Normally you can use Farmer on wheat, potato, carrot, beet and flax, and then add to that list with a specialization: cultivator for melon and pumpkin, gardener for cactus, sugarcane and netherwort, and rancher for baby animals. So let me be completely honest. For these last 2 skills, that being farmer and taunt, I kind of went off a bit of tangents and ramblings, so they are a bit longer than the rest, so this part I'm gonna do live instead of the script that I've been using. For starters, farmer that I was explaining there, well, to be honest, it doesn't get any better. Like, the numbers themselves are actually good. I'm gonna make so that the table appears on the screen right now, and as you can see, it's kind of good. The numbers, they do scale well. However, the fact that it costs mana and that by the time you get good mana regen to actually be able to use the skill, well, by that time you should already have at least either create it is indeed a pouch. Well, this should already be in your possession, and if not, there are other simple farms you can use villagers on, or another more simple create stuff. Either way, by the time you get mana regen enough to actually be worth using, well, you've already wanted to use points on other skills, so you won't be leveling up farmer. So it is kind of useless and just a waste of skill points. Now for the last one, we have Taunt. Well, Taunt simply makes so that enemies around you prioritize attacking you. However, is there really a point of spending more than one point of this skill? Because once you press it and you get the aggro, as long as you keep attacking the monsters, they will target you. Therefore, well, you don't really need to keep on attacking them, pressing, having a longer duration on this skill. So yeah, you just need to spend 1 point so that the mana cost is low, and then you just keep the aggro for yourself. However, I don't have anyone to test this with, since I don't have anyone to play with, unfortunately. I really need to find some friends. Well, um, either way, you just need one level to get the aggro, and then it's easy to keep it. As for fear, well, that one is a bit trickier because let's say I do keep my fear and press it. Now every one of these mobs would be running away from me, and at last level you have 8 seconds. Those are 8 seconds you can use to loot everything you need and then get a lot of dodge. So that being said, while they have made it so that like Frost, it doesn't really be it isn't really possible for you to have permanent fear on the targets, but it's still more than enough to do whatever you want to do, being running away from mobs, and even if you want loot. So if we are to look at the tier list, I think these skills would be D tier for Taunt, but as I said, I don't have anyone to test with, so maybe it is lower, but I have a hard time believing that it should be higher and that you should spend more than one skill point on it if you want it. As for Fear, well, Fear is another story. I think it should be in the B tier. And I guess that's the end of the video. So, as you saw, I made a tier list and I do want your opinion on it. However, I ask you for you to remember that this one was a tier list based on how well a skill scales, not how useful a skill is and how good a skill is. Just purely based on numbers on how bad it is at the start and how much better it gets at the end. Anyway, I guess that was all. Want to make a video so that I release it on the 6th of April, so I will try to make that happen. And I think I'm gonna start going back to streaming a little more now. I think I've finally got stuff in order so that I can finally do this a bit more, how do I say it, regularly instead of like once every 2 months like this one. And I also learned that making these kinds of longer videos needs to be in the background while I also post others, because this was fun and I feel like I don't train my English as much as I wanted to with making these videos, because as I said before, my original purpose was to train my English because I do not feel like my speaking abilities were up to what I wanted. And yeah, I think making more videos will help me more with that, because it will force me not just read what I'm saying, but actually think and talk at the same time. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video, and if all goes well, until tomorrow, bye.